Can you see my slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see, yeah.
Yeah. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Skills for Today, Skills for Tomorrow event brought to you by the AFBE-UK and Spirit Energy. So the AFBE-UK are a non-profit organization that aims to promote diversity in the industry by inspiring high achievements. So I am your host for today. My name is Uthayakumaranathan. I'm a petroleum engineer with Equinor UK here in Aberdeen. And I'm also the AFBE-UK Scotland Transition Program Coordinator. So for the theme of the event, so currently change is the buzzword. There's uncertainty in, the way we operate, actually, in our lives as well, the way things are going. So for people looking to join the industry, questions such as what skills are more relevant for me are quite important. So to answer these questions, we have a panel from Spirit Energy with a broad range of experience here. So to the panelists, I'll just let you introduce yourselves. If you can include something interesting, that'll be nice as well. Just briefly introduce yourselves and including something interesting for the audience. So maybe I start with Mustafa.
Yeah, no worries. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Judy mentioned, my name is Mustafa, and my role in Spirit is the Incident-Free Workplace Program Manager, which is mainly around safety culture, so safety behaviors. My background is process engineering, so I'm a chartered process engineer with ICME, and for the last 9 years I've been working as a process engineer in projects, process engineering, design, and operations. And as of late last year, I joined this role due to an interest of mine and also an opportunity within the business. Something interesting about me, I'm a massive Formula One fan. I see it as interesting because I love Formula One. So it's more that when we get to the networking later, if anyone has any questions for me, we can discuss that or outside. That's me.
Thanks, Mustafa. Stella?
Hi, everyone. My name is Stella Emeye. I'm the head of procurement for wells and subsurface. I look after all wells and subsurface activities in the UK, Netherlands, and Norway. I started off as a well site drilling engineer, so I used to work on the rig. You can imagine the environment with all men around you. And I got used to being called Mr. Stella, which is good. Some people still write me emails and write Mr. Stella. Interesting fun about me, I just like being the only woman among men. I think because I grew up in a home full of boys, I got so used to it. So I think that has shaped my life till today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stella. Luke?
Hi, everyone. I'm Luke Bowman. I'm an instrument technician for Spirit Energy here at the Barrow Terminal. Not much on the experience side, especially when compared to Mustafa and Stella. I've come through a 4-year apprenticeship scheme, and I'm coming up 3 years of technician level experience. Can't think of an interesting fact at the moment, so you don't have to come back to me on that one.
That's fine. Thanks, Luke. And Ruby?
Hi everyone, my name is Ruby Uthayakumaranathan. I'm a process engineer at Spirit Energy. I actually joined in 2017 on the graduate scheme. So I spent 2 years, I was on 2 different rotations at different assets, so providing asset support. And then I finished the graduate scheme, I moved to Aberdeen into tech function, and then very recently, I've just started in a new team, so I'm in the engineering team within the projects function. Same as Luke, quite early on in my career, so there's not much more to add there. But interesting fact about me, in my spare time, I'm kind of into like arts and crafts. So at the moment, I'm into watercolor paintings and pencil drawing, and every now and then I dabble in a bit of photography.
Oh, Nice. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing that. So for the, oops, I don't know if this blocks the, let me just minimize this a bit. Yeah, so for the agenda, just to set the scene for today. So first off, we'll be starting off with the introduction, which we've already done, or we've already started. So just after now, actually, I'll get Spirit, Stephie, actually, to say a bit about Spirit Energy. And then after that, we go into the panel discussion. And then we now open the floor for questions from the audience. So, and I'm sure after the discussions, there'll be a lot of burning questions. Then straight after that, we have a tea and talk session where the audience get to have an informal chat with the panelists. And then we have a closing remark. So but yeah, so before we kick it off, I just want to share this slide quickly. Whenever we think about oil and gas or oil, I guess what comes to mind mostly is fuel for your cars or fuel for your truck. But very rarely would you think of well, for me initially, some years ago, you wouldn't think of like your plastic comb or like your toothbrush, or indeed even medicinal oils. So basically, I just thought that this would be a good slide to, to kick off that, just to say that oil is actually more than just a fuel, and there's still life yet in the oil and gas industry. So actually, so before I hand over to Spirit, I would like to launch a poll just to sort of gauge the interests from the audience. I just want to, so the idea is just to gauge the perception of the audience, and then we take the answers at the end. So yeah, so basically just have a minute or two to just fill in the answers. So the idea is just to see, for example, where do you think you are just now with regards to skill levels? Yeah, do you think you're prepared for an assessment center, and will this event help you? And how comfortable do you feel working in a different industry, and do you think there is a future in the oil and gas industry? So I'll just give a minute for that to be answered. Okay, I think we'll just end the poll. But quite interesting. So most people feel they have sufficient skills, and actually most people also feel they feel prepared to go in front of an assessment center and feel this event will help. And actually, interesting point. Most people, or how comfortable do you feel working in a different industry? And most people are comfortable with change. And the good one is I see a lot of people still see a lot of hope in the oil and gas industry. So thanks, guys. So I will just end the poll, and I'll relaunch it later on. But at the moment, I'll just get up the slides from Spirit. Just
Sorry, Chidi, I think people are asking to see the poll results.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we couldn't see it, yeah.
You couldn't see it? Okay, sorry. I'm just sharing it now. All right, then I'll just hand over to Stephie to present on Spirit Energy, yeah?
Yeah. Right, so hi everybody. My name is Stephie Pascal Wade. I am a technical safety engineer at Spirit, but I'm also one of the leads of the Ethnicity Network. Spirit is quite a new company. It was established at the end of 2017, so we thought it would be worth just sharing a few facts about the company. I will be brief because like you, I am excited to hear from our panel. So just a few facts. Judy, if you could move on to the next slide. So we have our headquarters in the UK, but we also have operations in Norway and the Netherlands, employing about 1,000 people. We're a full cycle operator, producing about 45 million barrels of oil equivalent each year from the 33 fields that we have interest in. In terms of reserves, we have roughly 300 million barrels of oil equivalent. And as you can see, we invest heavily each year to try to sustain that. In addition to those facts, I would also like to add that it's quite a great place to work. We were having a conversation about it earlier, and I think everybody is in agreement that the culture is very flexible, very close-knit, very inclusive as well, I would say. In terms of D&I, we're not perfect, but I think we're headed in the right direction, looking at D&I a lot more broadly. So for example, we have employee networks, not just for gender, but also for ethnicity, LGBT, carers, disabilities, young professionals, various aspects of D&I. I think also because of our size, there's a lot of opportunities to develop and to lead, especially as a young professional. So for example, when I started leading this network, I was still a graduate, and Ruby, who's recently joined us as a lead, is also quite early in her career. So I think a lot of opportunities to lead both within and outside of your core role. Another thing that came up in the discussion is there's not a lot of red tape, so you can get things done and get things done quite quickly, which I appreciate. Agility is actually one of our core values. So along with care, courage, collaboration, and delivery. I promised to be brief, so I will end here. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me or any of the panelists during the Q&A or the networking session afterwards. The only thing I would like to add before I hand back to Judy is just to thank AFB for collaborating with us on this event. And my hope is that it will be the first event of many that we will do together.
Thank you, Stephie. Thank you. So I guess I'll just open the floor for just going back here. Yes, so now next on the agenda is the panel discussion. And actually the way the questions will be asked, we are split into four, it will be split into 4 classes of questions. So the first class of questions will be on choosing the right industry or entry routes. Sorry, maybe let me share my Zoom so that everyone can see themselves. Just bear with me. Just bear with me, please. Let me just stop sharing. Yeah, so everyone can see themselves and see everyone can see everyone's reaction. So yes, so like I said, we have 4 classes of questions. We'll start with choosing entry routes. So I'll actually start with Ruby. So Ruby, you could have gone for any other industry. Why did you choose the oil and gas industry?
So I studied chemical engineering at uni, and traditionally oil and gas was the place to go afterwards. But when I graduated, the oil and gas industry wasn't in the best place. And a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my peers went into finance and banking. So that was kind of where the attraction was. But for me, I always wanted to be an engineer. I kind of thought, well, I've done this engineering degree. I really want to go into a job where I can use the stuff that I've learned, the skills that I've learned. So I was really keen on being an engineer. And when I thought about what I wanted to study, so when I was picking my degree, I'd always wanted to do something that would have some kind of impact on everyday life. So when you start thinking about how we keep warm in winter or how we cook our food, the gas industry plays a huge role in that. So for me, joining this industry was my way of being able to make a change to our everyday lives. And I guess it's quite an exciting time to join the industry as well, when you consider things like climate change, which means that the way that we work, the way that we operate, everything's going to have to go through some kind of transition, which is the energy transition. So it's an exciting time to be part of it. It's not going to be sort of same old. It means that we're going to be embracing new technologies, new ideas, and all of that for me just made it seem like an exciting place to start my career.
Yeah, good one. Being able to make a change. That's a good one. So Luke, I guess you've gone via the apprenticeship route. So what has your career been like so far via this route? I don't know if you could share a bit about that.
Yeah, so I took the apprenticeship route straight out of school at 16, so fresh-faced. I did a 4-year apprenticeship that we do here at Barrow. The first year is a full-time at college, 5 days a week. And then the next 3 years, you go to college 1 day a week, and it's 4 days on site. And you basically build up your knowledge and your responsibility as well by following other technicians and sort of learning by doing. It's a much more practical sort of hands-on approach. I really like the apprenticeship schemes because not only do you gain qualifications and gain theoretical knowledge, but you also get the other side of it, and you learn how to apply that knowledge in situations. And I feel like you strike a really good balance when you do it like that. And also going to college 1 day a week sort of breaks up the work week as well. So I did like that. You get to see new faces, discuss different ideas and things. But I always use it as the analogy of like learning how to drive, where you don't really learn until you're out on the road by yourself and doing it. So you sort of get a lot of it after that. Post apprenticeship, I've coming up 3 years in September, technician level, but I'm also doing a company sponsored honours degree, which is 4 years. It's longer because it's like a part-time. So still that balance of theoretical and practical work and college and just finding the balance. But I really enjoy it, to be honest. I feel like it is a good mix of both skill sets.
Very good. Are you a member of any like professional body like the Emeye, or have you been able to combine apprenticeship with those, or?
Not yet. I have been looking at applying over the last year. I was going to go into the technician level entry, but I decided to skip over that and try and get straight in as an incorporated engineer when I've finished my honours degree, just to sort of stop myself from applying twice. Just a bit of laziness, to be honest.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Lee. Yeah. So, yeah. Or does anyone have any comments on that one? Maybe Stella.
I can add something, I guess, from my end. So I joined. I used to see myself as a young engineer, but seeing Ruby and Luke, and I feel a bit older now. But anyway, about 10 years ago, I joined oil and gas. But before that, I actually tried a couple of routes. So I worked in pharmaceuticals, and I did an internship at BP as well. And out of both of them, I found that I enjoyed oil and gas more. But before doing the internships, I wouldn't have known. So I guess the advice there is to seek out opportunities. If it's not through internships, then you can do work experience. You can do whatever, just so you can get that flavor. Similar to what Luke said, the most you learn is when you actually start doing it. So that would be the things I would add.
Thank you, Mustafa. So now for the second part of the questions, it's actually questions surrounding changing career discussion. So once you're in, right? It's not the end. You have to think about, okay, where's the best way, or what is the best way to get to the top? So for this one, I think I would start with Stella. So I know you've changed, you're quite experienced, you've done a few roles. So what skills in your previous engineering role have you been able to utilize in your current role?
Thank you, Chidi. So I started off as a drilling engineer, but today I am a supply chain professional. And the first and foremost, back then, there were not many girls on the rig. And when you get pregnant, it's a different issue. So there's no proper accommodation for a pregnant lady on the rig. But that's not the only reason I could have gone back after I had my kids. But then I went into supply chain just to get another perspective to the work. So then I was working in Shell, and they had this problem of, they had lawyers and people from other backgrounds doing wells contracts, but they were struggling because they didn't have the technical knowledge. So it was difficult for them sometimes to negotiate things because they didn't have that understanding of how things worked. So for me, coming from a technical background and then going on to do contracts to support well engineering and subsurface, the key thing was that technical skills and knowledge you come back with from the rig. So you already know how the rig runs, you know the services on board, you have a very good market intelligence of companies that can provide such services. You know how these equipment operates. So it becomes a lot easier for you to design or make out clauses for like when they are down, when they are operating and things like that. Also, when you work on the rig as a company rig person, you actually require a lot of analytical skills to do that job. And you also need a lot of managerial skills because you're managing both people and equipment, because for every day a rig is working, it costs you a lot of money. So you need to have your head in the right place. You need to only keep the equipment you actually require, and you have to demob every other thing you don't need. So for me, coming from an operational perspective, equips you with having those knowledge. And when you then apply that to supply chain, you find out that you always get the best deal for the company. And at the end of the day, every company is in there to make a profit and provide returns for the shareholders. And if the decision you make on a day-to-day basis enables them to achieve that, then for me, I think you're doing a very good job. So when you have a rig that is operating, for example, you have some rig that go as far as $350,000 per day, and then you add the spread onto it, you almost can't afford to make a mistake. So you really need that skill, that knowledge to be able to make the right decisions. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Stella. So one key point I picked up on there is technical skills is quite important. So I guess that the time you spent, honing your technical skill has given you an advantage there to be able to understand the details at your top level just now. So technical skills, I guess, for example, what most people will think is maybe trying to go up the ladder quite fast without having that good foundation. But from what you've seen, from what you've said, having technical skills are quite good. Thanks, Stella. So Mustafa, to you. So currently, you moved into a role as an IFW manager. So having started out as a process engineer, how has your background helped you in your current role?
Sure. I guess I'll start by explaining IFW. It's incident-free workplace. So that's around our company is going through a journey to try and ensure that we have an incident-free workplace within the company. And that encompasses a lot of things. But in a nutshell, it's around safety culture and making sure that we as a company are doing the right thing and caring for our people. So yeah, coming from process engineering background to this was quite a change. And I'll echo what Stella said, definitely it applies in this case. So the technical language has helped me massively. I think knowing the people, but also knowing the equipment they're talking about, lots of the discussions we're having around incidents around equipment or a situation. So as they're explaining it, or I'm trying to get involved and listen, I'm able to listen in a more meaningful way. And I guess it seems, and I get this impression from feedback from the operators, that they're more willing to interact with me because they know that I've, I guess, done some of the aspects they've been talking about that may lead to incidents, or that we do to prevent those incidents more specifically. So that's just to echo Stella, but a couple of other things that I think are relevant, or there are skills that I used, is utilizing your network. So being an engineer, you tend to work on a lot of little mini projects, you do a lot of problem solving, you speak to multiple people, you tender, and you work with the finance team. So one benefit of that is you start building a very kind of large network of people that you work with. That's both formal and informal, through discussions, through little projects. And I found that in my role, I guess you need to deliver when you work with these people. So having delivered, you then come back, you can then call upon these networks. My job at the moment is try and establish a culture or help people move into that journey, and support it. So influencing is quite a key thing. And once you've had that established network to build upon, so for example, you're working with the finance team and you go to one person that you've worked with in the past, and this applies to most people, but with engineering, I find that my network is quite vast. From only working for a few years within the company, I'm sure even the young engineers will echo this. So my suggestion or my advice for people in this call is to use your network. Don't be shy about it. And I think looking at young grads, I think sometimes they shy away from using that network. They think, no, but I'm a young engineer, I'm a grad, I don't know if I can ask this manager. But you don't ask, you don't get, is my mantra. And I found that when I ask, I tend to get in this scenario. So ask away. And later this afternoon, you're going to build a network through this event. That's my time. Then utilize it and ask away. The final thing I'll add, Trudy, sorry, is knowing what you don't know. So as engineers, we have to be very clear about what we don't know, because if we don't, then things can go wrong and people can get hurt. And in this current role, coming in with that same mindset, I'm quite transparent. If I don't know something, I tell people, and that seems to have helped move things forward. So that as an engineer is a skill that you will have because you need to, for technical and safety reasons. And when you move to managerial roles, it puts you in good stead with multiple people. Thanks,
Mustafa. Very, very good. Two points I picked up on there were networking. You basically highlighted the importance of networking. So I don't know, do you think this is a personality thing? I guess there are some people that are not as open as others. How do you think they approach this, approach networking? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. So you can get people who, I guess, are more extroverted and they believe that networking will come easier. But I find that you will, depending on your skills, you will be able to network in different ways. So if you're an introvert, you should utilize other means to help. And I'm sure some of the other people in the panel can add to this. I guess I can speak from my own perspective. I enjoy meeting new people and speaking to them, but that's not the only way to do it. You can utilize previous work you've done. So an introvert or someone with a different personality will still be doing work, and they can still call about that one person in an individual call. It doesn't have to be in a big group. So I think use your own method. Don't try and change, but seek advice from others who have done it before you. So if you know someone who's maybe a bit like you, ask them. Have some role models. So I've kind of picked on role models who I've seen have similarities to me, and that has helped me because it's kind of picked on a few points that I can develop, but others may do something with other people who have slightly different personality traits.
Thanks, Mustafa. Very good point there. So the next section of questions are on career challenges. Similar to everything in life, you're bound to run into obstacles now and again. So it will be good to get some pointers, on how to navigate this. So again, actually, before I go on there, it will be unfair if I skip this point. The question on technology. So what skills do we? So this is a general question to everyone, by the way, to all the panelists. Sorry. So what skills do we need to excel in a world that is getting more digitized? I don't know if any one of you could maybe touch on that one, still under the changing career discussion, because I know as the world is changing, or as the way we operate and work is changing, we also need to keep up to date with the trend, with big data, yeah. So could anyone comment on this?
So what?
Yeah, it should. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Stella, do you want to go first?
You go ahead, Ruby. Go ahead.
All right. What I was going to say is that I think everyone needs to sort of be open to change. I can say that I'm very guilty of when someone introduces a new bit of software that's, analyzing data in a different way, I kind of go, oh, not another one. And I kind of, don't embrace it because it's something new, it's something different. I don't have the time to invest in it, whatever the excuses at the time. But if I'm not open to these changes and I don't understand how these tools can actually be useful to me, then it just means that I'm going to fall behind. Whereas the people that do embrace them, that do kind of spend a bit of time understanding what a new tool does, how we can use this data better, how we can, change processes, our sort of everyday processes to be more efficient, those people are gonna excel and sort of move forward with the industry. So I would say being open to change and embracing all the different opportunities that come in this kind of digital world is really important.
Thanks, Ruby. Thank you. When you say so, just a quick question from Emeye. When you say software tools, any tips on what the latest tools for engineers are? Is it Python or, I don't know, Excel, being an expert in Excel, or?
So again, here I'm going to have to just own up to not knowing much, but this is, I know one of the things we're going to talk about later is about tips for people looking to join the industry. And one of my tips would be up to date with the technological developments of the world, because graduates so far, our education hasn't involved a lot of coding, and that kind of sort of stuff. But a lot of the students that are going through school and uni now have a much more broader exposure when it comes to different coding languages and how to use different tools, and so will become very valuable to a company when they join the industry. So definitely build on those skills if you can, and when you do join the industry, if you can see ways that things can improve, then speak up and get involved, because you'll be part of that change going forward. Thanks,
Ruby. So now to the next question, group of questions, which were on career challenges. So I will just go over to you, Mustafa. So you moved from a different country to the UK to study. So what additional challenges did you face because of this?
Yeah, thanks for that, Judy. And just for a bit of background, I guess I'm originally from Sudan, but grew up in United Arab Emirates. So came here to the UK to study and then after that work. And I guess one of the challenges I had, which I know a lot of my friends, and I'm assuming some people on this call may have had something similar, is lots of companies require sponsorship for visas for you to work in the UK. And when I was working, actually, it was when I was applying, it was easier because there was something called a post-study worker visa, which allowed you 2 years to look for a job. That's now removed. So I think it's harder now for young graduates from different backgrounds. So speaking about me personally, when I graduated and was moving here to the UK, I still had that visa requirement with me. So I had less options, which meant that I had to throw my net wider. So I think one thing you could see that as I had less options, oh no, I'm gonna have less companies. I saw as a challenge that I needed to overcome. And so the way I overcame it was I expanded my horizons a bit more and said, okay, what else can I apply for? What other companies are there? What other industries are there? And that's why I tried multiple industries, one of the reasons at least. So my advice for that area is that if you are facing that kind of issue, maybe choose to be a bit less selective when it comes to this, because I found that I could find out more when it comes to the interview. So I'm not saying apply for jobs you don't want, I'm definitely not saying that, but you can apply for more companies and expand it a bit more. And then when you get to the interview, hopefully you get it, you can be a bit more selective at that point. But that way you'll improve your options. That's the strategy I went down. Another issue I had was, I guess once I got employed, it was staying employed and continue to get sponsorship. Being from Sudan, so I still had my passport. I still had to get renewed visas. And unfortunately for me, at one point, it coincided with the company going through some redundancies. So there was a period where if I lost my job, I wouldn't just lose my job, I would also lose my ability to stay in the UK. So that was quite a significant challenge and worry, but Spirit was actually quite supportive. The advice is quite natural there, is just do your best. If you work hard and you achieve, it gave me an extra motivator. I thought, you know what, I'm not gonna lose my job, I need to stay here. The harder I work, the less they'd want to get rid of me. So I kind of used it to maintain that, and Spirit has been really helpful from that sense, and they sponsored me all the way until I got my passport. And the proof that I like Spirit is when I got my passport and my ILR 3 years ago, I'm still here at Spirit. So people thought, oh, so when you get it, you're just going to leave. That's not the case. So I'm still here. So that would be the two key challenges. One minor one I would say is culture. So growing up in Abu Dhabi, having a Sudanese background, you have certain things that you do that are minor, but they affect the way you work. And the lesson or the challenge I had was how to integrate in the UK culture. And my kind of thing that I live by is I always try and integrate with the culture of the country I'm in, because I'm in that country, I need to understand it and integrate. However, sticking to my fundamentals. So fundamental culture I have, I live through that, but I also need to integrate and get to know how we do things here. And that will put you in good stead, because you show you're willing to integrate, and that will remove a lot of barriers which could be perceived. So for me, that was the other challenge that I had to overcome as well.
Thanks. I think I got a few points there, but I think the one I would just highlight is basically casting your nets wider. You know, don't just get fixated on a particular industry. You know, try and broaden your horizon. Thanks, Mustafa. Yeah, and a question to you, Lou. Do you think there should be a stronger emphasis on apprenticeship as a path to engineering?
Yeah, so I obviously really appreciate the apprenticeship route, because it's what's brought me into the industry. I think for me, growing up where I did, when I did, university had a prestige to it, and apprenticeships had a bit of a stigma as for being people that couldn't get into university. It seemed to change around the time I was going through my year 11 exams. So I started looking. I'm not sure if that's still the feeling. I'm sure it is in some places and for some people, but I think it's totally wrong. I think an apprenticeship is an excellent way to get into engineering. In my opinion, one of the most valuable aspects of it, which I don't think you'd get with a more academic scheme like a graduate scheme, and I'm not going to badmouth it because I know a lot of people have come through it. but you get a lot more hands-on experience. And at the same time as learning the theoretical knowledge, you also learn how to apply it to real-world scenarios. And instead of dealing in theory and ideal calculations, you learn where it falls down. So we've got some equipment on site that's older than I am. So it's not going to work perfectly every time. And although it says this on the drawing and in the manual, you've got to know that it's not going to be like that, and you can't expect everything to be perfect. So it really helps you get that sort of gut feeling, for lack of a better word. I suppose the fear of the apprenticeship scheme for me and for a lot of people is that you feel it might have a ceiling. You feel, it'll be either at the end of the apprenticeship or maybe slightly after, is you just got to stop. You start your apprenticeship scheme to do this job, and then that's it forever. But I don't think that's the case at all. As I say, I'm currently doing a honours degree, company sponsored, and there's managers here. A few of them started as apprentices. So I think that just tells, and like Stella said, with the technical background, how important a good foundation is. I think it's really important. I think it's a really good path that's often overlooked.
Thanks, Luke. I think one interesting point there was, getting the practical knowledge. I must admit, I've done a foundation year, degree, master's, and I delve deep into theory. But when you start working, you start saying, not these equations you're deriving, it doesn't quite work out like that at the end. So very good point. Very good point. I think this next question will be to both Stella and Ruby. It's just, I want to get your thoughts as women in the oil and gas industry. How have you coped with challenges, if any? Maybe Stella, you can start, and then Ruby. I think with Stella, you enjoyed it. You say you like being the only. You like being the only one.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, I think my situation is more of a double whammy. First, I'm a woman, and secondly, I'm Black. So I always tell people to start with, deal with it. So when you arrive on the rig, for example, and you are a lady and you look around and you've got 104 people on board and you are the only girl, your first thought is, what the heck am I doing here? And I remember the first day I joined well engineering, we were 13 staffs that resumed, 12 guys and myself. And the then well engineering manager, the first thing he said to me is, oh, you're in the wrong place. We don't have any women here. And I looked at him and I said, no, I am in the right place. And that rule is about to change. And he looked at me and he was like, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm Stella, by the way. It's quite challenging and it takes a lot to be that way. And I think having that kind of sense has really helped me survive. Like I said, I grew up with boys. So you know how boys can behave. They can quite give it to you. So now I know how to give it back. Trust me, it's a survival instinct. You need it sometimes. So sometimes I am one of the boys. I can give it as hard as they can give it. It's good in a sense that means you can take the joke and you can also dish it out. That helps you get their respect. And I think the other thing for me, it's on the work side of things, you need to prove a point as a woman. You need to be really dedicated. Sometimes you need to work 10 times as hard to prove that you are as good as the boys. So for example, part of the well engineering training, just like what Luke was saying, you can read it in theory, very good, but it has to be practical. And during my training, I also did a hands-on training where you had to walk from being what we call a roastabout on the rig until you rise to the point of becoming the drilling engineer on board. So that means I had a structured training of probably every month or every 3 months. I was a roastabout. The following month, I was a floorman. So for example, I could have been exempted because being a floorman, I had to lift those heavy spiders and wrenches and talk. Trudy is smiling because he knows what I'm talking about. But I refused to be exempted because the first thing they told me was, that's a job for a man. I'm like, no. They're like, you need strength. I'm like, you don't need strength. You just need the right mind to do it. So for me, I didn't shy away from any of those challenges. I actually tackled all of them. And for everyone I completed, I got my logbook signed off. So for me, you need to not shy away from the challenges. You have to tackle them. That's life. And secondly, you need to be very dedicated and focused. You need to know your goals and you need to focus on your goals. And you don't let anything distract you. And that's why I talked about giving it back as much as you give it, because the boys will try to distract you. They will try to discourage you, but you have to learn to manage it. And once you're able to manage it, you gain their respect and you just become one of them. And even on the personal side of it, I remember then whenever I'm going to the rig or when I'm on the rig, and my boyfriend then, who is now my husband, he'll call me and he's like, who is your man for the night? I'm like, oh, let me check. I have so many of them. So we used to be able to laugh about those things, but I think it did help me emotionally and intellectually to balance myself and do my job. And I think another thing is you have to be very logical and methodical in your discussions and in the way you do your job. Put emotions away from it. People tend to think women are very emotional. Oh, they're going to cry and jump up and shout. I don't have time for those things. I deal with facts. And I tell people, show me the facts. So you need to know your job, you need to have the facts, and you need to be logical when doing it. And I think if you are able to do those, you will survive in that environment. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Stella. And Ruby, could you just add something briefly?
Yeah, so like mentioned, I fall in quite a few categories, which I'm young, female, and Asian. So there's a lot of like minority categories. So I can always sort of doubt that certain things happened, which one. But I think female is the one where, there's been a couple of occasions I've noticed where someone's just assuming I don't want to go out on site. I want to stay indoors and do something behind a computer rather than go out and see what it looks like or whatever it is. Or someone's given me sort of technical admin kind of job to do rather than a meat engineering project. And I've always been, well, why? Is because I'm female. You think that I can't handle going outside. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to get sort of stuck in and dirty or whatever it is. And initially, because I'm usually quite an introverted person at work, so I never used to challenge it. But nowadays, what I found is this is only going to limit my opportunity, right? So what I do or try to do now is when I see things that I want to do and I want to get involved in, I raise my own hand and say, hi, can I get involved in that? Can you arrange it so I can go out on site when this is happening or whatever it is? Because at the end of the day, it's about trying to develop myself, right? And as people see you in that kind of environment and handling it well, and then they kind of forget any kind of assumptions that they've made from you. But until you put yourself out there and it's kind of sad that you have to prove yourself in that kind of environment. But once you've done that, then you really, it changes people's perception of you. So you're much more likely to just be treated as one of the guys, rather than being seen as like little Ruby who doesn't want to get hurt by going outside. So yeah, there's an element of confidence to it, I think, to a challenge.
Thanks, guys. I think from what I got there from actually both of you, a theme of speaking up is quite important, like raising your hands and if you feel you need something changed, but you said a lot of things actually. Thanks a lot for sharing that. For the interest of time, we just want to go to a quick fire session. So just, quickly, yeah. I want you guys to give 3 tips, on a few points. So to Ruby, what 3 tips will you give anyone wanting to join the industry, just now?
So I would say find out what's happening in the industry right now. There's a lot of new exciting projects going on. We're part of this energy transition. How can we get our platforms into hydrogen production or electrification, things like that. There's so many new and exciting things going on. And I think people join the industry be trying to find more about, and that's what they should be excited about. So I'd say do your research on that kind of thing. Be open to new technology, something I touched on earlier. Me and Mr. spoke about it the other day. I think AFBE ran a session about coding, and we hadn't been taught very much in coding in our education, but the kids coming through education now, it's a big part of what they're learning. So be open to technology, or I think it will make really valuable companies when you start in the industry. And finally, I would say find out as much as you can about the variety of roles. Something that I wish I'd known more about when I joined the industry. I knew process engineer, but I didn't know about subsurface production operations. There's just so many different roles out there. And I think will really change people's perception in terms of how exciting an industry is to be a part of. So going to events like this, working where you can, and finding out about the variety of roles will help for anyone who's interested in the industry.
Thanks, Ruby. And Luke, what 3 things can you do to make your job application stand out? Just 3 tips, if you would like to share.
I'm not sure if I can think of 3.
Just any.
It's going to sound extremely cliche, but I think you need to be yourself and be unapologetically yourself. If you're passionate about the industry, or you're passionate about the industry, or even something, just show it. And if there's things you're not passionate about, say I don't like that aspect, or I'm not really fond of it. I think having a personality makes you stand out rather than just being someone on a CV, on a piece of paper. You need to put a person to it. For me, I'm really into computers. I like doing it. I remember coming to my apprenticeship with a little binder, a little portfolio with PCs that I built for me and my friends. And one of them had said, "Oh, I want a PC that can do this." And one of them said, "I want to spend this much money." So it was almost like a little mini project. And but you know yourself, when someone speaks about something they're passionate about, you can get in the voice. So if you can show that you have that drive and that you can be interested in something, I think that's really important. Or else you're almost forgettable. So if you have 10 applicants and they come in and say, "Oh, I've got these qualifications and I can do this and I can do that," it's not interesting. You just, if you're passionate about something, just show it and be your interest.
Thanks, Luke. Thank you. So Mustafa, very, very quickly, what 3 things do you think will rule a candidate out for you? Like a no, like this is.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to be a bad cop here, but in assessment centers I've been in, or graduate recruitment, a few things kind of pop out here. One would be trying to pull the wool over my eyes, or trying to waffle. So if I ask a question and the person doesn't know, it's much more endearing or honest if they tell me they don't know, but then tell me they would be able to find this out, because that's genuinely what happens. If I don't know something, like I said earlier, I wouldn't try and hide it. So if I see an engineer is going to try and pull the wool over my eyes, I worry about their attitude towards it. I know they're trying to get the job, but I wouldn't appreciate that. So that would be one thing for me. I actually did it in an interview where I said I didn't know something and I ended up getting the job, and the assessor told me I got the job because of that, because he felt that was appreciated. The other thing would be showing a lack of interest. So it relates to what Luke was saying. So someone comes to the assessment center, the interview, and they're not showing a lack of interest in the company or the job. I just feel like they're ticking a box or going to the assessment center because they applied, whatever it may be. I need to see the person's interest. It doesn't have to be extroverted level of interest. It's more, can I sense that this person's interested? That is another one. The final one, I think this happens a lot, and this is a bit of advice in the group exercise, which happens a lot in most assessment centers. People tend to, definitely engineers, tend to focus on the technical issue. And the ruling out thing would be, for me, if the person, how they interact with their co-candidates if they make mistakes. So if their if someone in their group makes a mistake and they put them down in a very rude or trying to show themselves up over the other person, even if they're right, that would look bad for me as an assessor, because what we're looking for in the group exercise is not the technical outcome, it's how you interact in the group and how you interact with your colleagues. So that's just a tip for any people going to assessment centers. Focus on how you deal with each other.
Thanks, Mustafa. Thanks. Very important points. I think I picked it up quickly. So if anyone is showing, if someone is trying to pull wool over your eye or trying to deceive you, someone is showing lack of interest, and then someone that's not able to interact, maybe purely focusing on the technical issue, that's a no-no for yourself. So Stella, what 3 things do you think a good candidate should have? Like what 3 things if you see on a candidate, you're like, I must hire this person?
Thank you. So just like Mustafa and Luke actually said, for me, the first thing I look at is sincerity. It's amazing, but you would know when people have embellished their CVs or they're telling you a story that is quite embellished. So most often than not, when I'm recruiting for a supply chain personnel, and this person doesn't know me, doesn't know I'm coming from a technical background, and people write stuff into their CV, and it's easy for somebody to pick that up and ask you a question, and then you start floundering, and really that puts people off, that puts me off. Just like Mustafa said, because I just believe you're trying to pull a wool over my eye. So it's important that we remain truthful, write your CV as truthfully as you can. And if you don't know something, do say, put up your hands, I'm sorry, I don't know this, or I can look into it. So for me, that's quite key. Secondly, I like people that have a can-do attitude. I almost believe there's nothing impossible. There's nothing you can't do, except you place a limit to yourself. We can all do anything if we set our minds to it. I like to see that in people, because like when you go to assessment center and you give group of people projects to work on, sometimes people overthink it. And I say to them, no, just don't think outside what we've given to you. It's not to test your technical capabilities. Sometimes it's just mainly to see how you interact with people, whether you're a team player, the attitude you're displaying, because at the end of the day, you are not going to work alone. You're going to work in a team. So you want to see that people have that team spirit. And I think the final one for me would be lateral thinking. Are people able to think outside the box? So it's all about, that also ties into that limiting one's self. It's about limiting one's thoughts. Can somebody think right outside what we've given to them? Because like Ruby said, the world is changing. The way we do our operations are changing. We're going through this energy transition. How can you really be prepared for that? So for me, those are the 3 things I'll really be looking out for.
Thank you, Stella. I see, is it only, someone is helping to, so yeah, please everyone, just you can look at the chat for like a summary of what our panelists have said. So one last question, I think it won't be fair not to ask this question, because we are in Aberdeen, we're all tied to the oil and gas industry. But how can this coexist with the latest challenges on climate change? So this is an open floor for any of the panelists. Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts on this are. Is it possible to coexist, or oil and gas must, give up or not exist at all? Or is it a political question?
No, it's not. I'll go first.
Yeah.
I think both can coexist.
Mm.
The issue is sometimes, like you stated at the beginning, people think oil and gas is about producing petrol and diesel for the cars. It goes deeper than that. It's in your medicine, it's in your clothing, it's in the boats, ships, everywhere. And I always say to people, the question is, are you actually tackling climate change, or you are just shifting the carbon footprint from one place to another? So some people will tell you, oh, let's all go for electric cars. I'm like, I'm all good for it. But hang on, what are we going to use to produce the batteries? What are we going to use to charge it? Where is that going to come from? So I think we need to understand that both can coexist. We do need changes in the oil and gas industry. We do need to probably change some of our technologies. Like Luke said, some of the equipment are older than him. So we need to look at how we can change those things. For example, when I started working on the rig, a lot of the rigs were all manual. We used to do everything manually. Even racking pipes, everything was done manually. But today, I've seen newer rigs where you have iron roughneck, so there's nobody carrying the pipes there, and iron roughneck is doing that work. That's a massive improvement. We're beginning to have rigs now that are actually eco-friendly, so they use less fuel than they used to. So I think it's for us to start thinking of doing things in a different way, and both of them can actually coexist. And I think the oil industry is still here for the long run. Thank you.
Thanks, Stella. So for the interest of time, I think we need to dive into the Q&A session. I will just, so I guess I would open the floor. So the audience, please feel free to ask any questions. I'll just go through the chat to see if there is any I've missed. So feel free to ask questions, guys.
Hello, Judy.
Hello.
Can you hear me? This is Augustina.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, my comment is more of an appreciation message, not really a question. I want to say thank you to AFBE and Dr. Oli, most especially. Ever since I met him, my life had changed. And that's the truth, because 5 months after I came into the UK, I got a job with British Petroleum, just because Dr. Oli asked me to attend the first transition exercise. It's just super surreal, because I'm so sorry, I'm just getting emotional, but I just want to say thank you AFB, and thank you Dr. Oli. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Augustina, thank you. Thanks. Yeah. So it's comments like this that encourage us and make us do what we do. Very, very inspiring.
And that's an affirmative to networking that Mustafa spoke about. So please use your networks. Use this network, use every opportunity you have, because you never know.
Hello, Chidi. Yeah, this is a light on. I have a question. Some individuals have said if you are chartered, it actually gives you an advantage when actually trying to get employed into any form of engineering industry, either petroleum or otherwise. So can you buttress on that?
Chartered ship. Who will be the best to, I don't know, Mustafa or Stella? Could you?
I can add some comments and then pass on to the other panelists if they would like. So yeah, I got chartered in 2017, and the process is quite tough, but it validates your own view of your engineering. So I think I find that it was very useful to do the process itself. Following getting chartered, I think it's more, it helps you just reach that certain level within the industry. And when you speak to each other, you know you've gone through the same process. It's not an easy process. And it's not the title of chartered, there's requirements to get there that you need to attain. So it's, by going through the chartership process, you are proving you are reaching a certain level as an engineer from an experience, competence, and also commitment level. I think recently the institutions have done something really good where they've added sustainability, which is something we're discussing here, ethical discussions. It just, when you see someone who's chartered, you go, okay, they've been attested or someone has reviewed those elements of that engineer. It doesn't mean if you're chartered, you're a better engineer than someone who's not chartered. It just gives other people a way to know that you have reached those levels and have been passed as competent in them. As far as my own personal experience, I don't need to be chartered to be in my current role. I didn't need to be chartered in my previous role. From seeing engineers within Spirit, there's some who are not, some who are. I know, however, when working consultants, they charge chartered engineers at a different rate, so that it can affect your role in different types of companies. And I know that maybe other people in the panel, maybe other people on the call can also add to this. But from my own experience, it hasn't affected my role. It just, it gives you a level of confidence that I sought, and I know other people would kind of recognize when they speak to you. That would be my view of it.
So from a supply chain perspective, I got chartered in 2006, and I would say it does play a key role if you're looking for a supply chain position. And generally, it is known that people that are chartered do earn between 25 to 45% higher than those that are not. And for career progression, you do require it when you get certain level in CMP. So if you're considering a career along that path, it will be good. Like Mustafa said, it doesn't mean you are a better supply chain person than the other, but it just means somebody has you've gone through certain process and somebody has certified that you are aware, especially now that we're talking of modern slavery and ethical sourcing and ethical business dealings. It's important to know that you've passed through that process and you can recognize those things.
I would just add that if you have a hiring manager who's looking fact-based, I think chartership helps you prove that you have done something within the business or within your profession, rather than just talking about emotion. So I think that gives a really good stamp, especially if your manager's hiring fact-based thing.
One thing I'll add from what Stella said as well. So if you're looking to develop as a person, you can also mentor formally through these institutions, but you need to be chartered if you are mentored. So if you are a mentor, so it does open other avenues. So I highly recommend it to anyone. But I don't want to give the impression that if you don't get chartered, then you can't progress. There's people who have. I definitely recommend you go for it if you're looking at it.
Thanks, guys. For the interest of time, I see there are a few questions. Marie, I haven't forgotten you, but I think maybe we can just go and split into groups just now, and then you could just take your questions in the breakout room, if that's okay. So basically, I'll just split the audience into two groups, and then you basically have an informal session with the panelists. Yeah, so you feel free, any questions I've missed, please feel free to ask them directly. So I'll just do that now. Hello?
Hello.
Hi guys. Sorry I had to I had to be a bit naughty there. We have just 2 minutes left, but I hope it was you enjoyed the chat. So just one. So basically, just before we conclude, I would like to relaunch the poll we did at the beginning, just just to gauge perception again. And then we then have, just 2 minutes closing remarks. Promise it won't be more than that. Yeah. So basically the first question, do you think the skills you have are sufficient for the future? There is an even split between yes and no now, which is interesting. Okay, that's a change. And then do you feel prepared to go in front of the assessment center? Would this event help? So that's increased to 83%, which is actually quite good. I'm actually quite chuffed with that. And then also, how comfortable would you feel working in a different industry? Wow, more people are saying they are more comfortable. I guess maybe these tips from this event has helped them. And then the last but not the least, do you think there's a future for the oil and gas industry? And actually 86%. So that's an increase from, 71, I believe. So I think we've done our job selling the oil and gas. Yeah. So thanks, guys. Just for some, so what will happen? I think so. Mustafa has, and I guess some of the guys, so some of the panelists have, kindly, volunteered to stay on after. So what I'll do actually is just give some closing remarks, just very quickly, and then anyone who wants to stay on can stay and ask whatever questions that that they have. Okay, so I'll just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically,
Yes.
this will just be a minute. It's just, yeah. So basically, like I said in the beginning, the AFBE-UK are a non-profit organization that aim to promote diversity in the industry by inspiring higher achievements. So basically, that's who we are. We also run, so this event is actually organized by the Transition Group, but we also have 3 other groups of events. So we have the Next Gen, which is aimed at increasing the number of school children who become STEM professionals. And then we have the Real Project that basically give students like some flavor of how real projects are executed. So basically we get professionals from industry to come and talk to them. And then we have the leadership program, which increases employee excellence in the industry. So once you're in, helps stimulate your growth. So for those of us that don't know Transition, so basically Transition is actually aimed at getting, helping university students gain employment into the industry. So typically, although traditionally this has been aimed at engineers, but we also accommodate for non-engineers as well. So I would also want to just say many thanks to Spirit Energy for their, for their contribution. I must say it was quite good. And also to follow the AFBE, you can follow us on Twitter at AFBE-UK Scotland, and also on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, I don't know, Ollie, do you want to chip in or say any other?
Well, just to say thank you to Spirit. For anyone who's unaware, Spirit Energy are a member of AFBE-UK. They've been hugely supportive. And I think the fact that they're taking the time to spend time with us deserves a round of applause. So if everybody doesn't mind, don't want to embarrass them, but if you can all unmute let's give them a round of applause, because it takes, we really appreciate it. Yeah, it is genuinely appreciated. We're not, thank you. And if I were you, I wish I had this kind of opportunity, have some of the people that you have on the panel here. I would just ask questions. The fact that they've actually been generous enough to give us a bit more time, I would be like, yeah, how much time you got?
Yeah.
I'll ask a possible question, take advantage of it. An event on state that also around years, 30th of July, which you'll find it's COVID and the job market. So if you want to build on some of the things that you've been learning here, then please do. And then as Chudi said as well, we have a number of social media accounts. I will put our handles on the chat so that anyone who wants to follow us, as I tell people, follow us, like everything that you see, even if you don't like it, and follow us anyway. So, but yeah, thanks to Chudi. Thank you, Chudi, for being an excellent host. Thanks, Spirit Energy.
Yeah, thanks, Chudi.
Yeah, thank you. So the floor is open for more questions. Yeah.
Can I ask a question to go forward? Hi. I just graduated from Rhode Island University, and not just me, a lot of us, me and a lot of students that I knew had a, a position that we secured during our time in masters in mechanical engineering. But when the COVID hit, a lot of us, lost their position before we even started, and most of the companies, most of the 90% of the companies, ended their placements, internships, and the graduate position. So I'm just looking into taking any advice. So this is open for everybody. What advice would you give to a graduate who's just coming through this position in 2020?
So I guess in general sense, it's unprecedented times. I'm not going to say that I've been through something like what you're going through, and I do feel for you and all the other kind of candidates who have just come off university into this situation. I guess we've got Stacey on the call from a Spirit perspective, and maybe she's got some things, but in a general sense, I'll just echo what we were saying earlier around kind of don't be afraid to expand what you're looking for. So if what you've been looking at has been limited and you've struggled with that, I wouldn't shy away from I shouldn't shoot ourselves in the foot, but look at other industries that are maybe hiring at the moment, just to keep you employed, and then come back later at a time that there's more opportunities in something you're interested in, but be honest about it. So not saying take a job for the sake of taking it, just try and keep yourself working and developing, because you don't want to stagnate. That would be my general advice. I don't think you should, and it will, when you come back and apply again, it will show a good level of resilience that you've kind of fought through this kind of a situation, which none of us who are currently employed have gone through. So I would welcome to see that when we do open up assessment centers for graduate roles in the future. But I don't know, Stacey, you're on the call. If from a Spirit perspective, I know we had assessment centers planned, but then we didn't run them. So what thoughts do you have on that? And any of the other panelists, of course.
I guess just to echo what Mustafa said, I think it's important to look for roles that would give you different skills. And someone asked earlier about whether it was good to specialise. I think anything that you can bring to the table that's different will set you apart. So instead of being one of 50 graduates with the same degree, you'll be someone who's got that degree plus something else. So look to see what you can kind of add to your strengths. And the other thing would be to remember that oil and gas is a global industry. So look in other locations. It's very easy to move around the world with a career in this industry more than some others. So don't limit yourself to a geography, depending on what immigration and things you have in your way, but certainly look at other geographies as well, I would say.
Thanks, Stacey. Actually, now you're here. There was a question on internships. I don't know if they took it. Someone was asking if Spirit, I don't know, maybe Mustafa, you could comment. I think you took that question. Someone had a question on internships at Spirit.
Yeah, I guess Stella can probably say a bit more, but around what opportunities we have for internships, Stacey, for engineers or any other discipline in this year and I guess next year.
Yeah, it's tricky timing, to be honest. So usually what we would look to do is if we're taking graduates on, you would expect to see those adverts in September or October. When it comes to internships, you're probably looking at December or January for the following summer. So it's probably still a little bit early for any of those programs. We probably will take people at Spirit, but we're still doing our workforce plan and deciding exactly what disciplines they'll be. So I'd watch this space for Spirit. There'll certainly be a bit of a splash when we do start the recruitment for them, but it's maybe just a little bit early in the calendar to be seeing those opportunities. We do work with GradCracker. So if you don't know that company, I would check them out. It's an online website and they basically hold a lot of different STEM internships and graduate schemes as well. So that's a really good hub to look at companies you might not know, or roles in places you might not have thought of. So I'd recommend that, and certainly we'll use that when we come to do it as well.
Someone mentioned, I think Stephie or someone mentioned that we do have some vacancies at the moment, maybe at more experienced level, but some of the people on the call may be in that situation as well. So have a look at the job postings. I don't know if they're external, Stacey, but
Yeah, we've got some external, and I would say if you're wanting to kind of keep up on just kind of regular vacancies as they appear, I would follow Spirit on LinkedIn.
Some of them are. I saw them on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would say that's the place that we'll tend to put everything that's not our website. So if you're looking for an easy way to keep up to date with us, I would follow the LinkedIn page as well.
I was just going to
okay,
say something by way of contribution. But first, I'll thank all the panelists. Yeah, you guys have done really amazing. I've been taking a lot of notes. Amazing job today. Yeah, my quick contribution was just on one of the questions that you asked, Trudy, and that was to, I think, Stella, when you asked about how she's been able to sort of moved through her career, from one role to the other, and you sort of asked what one skill she thinks is quite important, which is applicable as irrespective of what role you find yourself. She gave very interesting answer, and what I picked from there, part of what she said was just the concept of keeping an open mind. What I just wanted to add also is the fact that looking at what's happening currently now, how technology is advancing, there's a whole lot of push for automation. It then means that irrespective of whatever role you find yourself, you just cannot keep up. You can't keep up with how much technology is advancing. You can't keep up with how much information is replicating itself. But one basic thing you can have, I mean, from my own experience and having also read some industry technology disruptors and things like that, is mental resilience. Because you would have to always just upskill at one point or another. You would always have to learn, unlearn and relearn. And one skill that is quite important at the end of the day is your mental resilience, your mental strength. Okay, it's more important above even technical skill in some instances, because as you move from one role to the other, the skill set you have, though might be applicable, but not fully applicable to the new role you are in. So you need to have the mental strength to be able to learn quickly, in that new role. I just wanted to add that as well. Mental resilience is quite important, and that can mean just keeping an open mind or having a growth mindset. I've had a really brief experience working so far after uni. Or what I found in my most recent role is the fact that much earlier on, I found it really difficult to keep an open mind in terms of having a growth mindset. Everything seemed like a challenge to me, and that really sort of affected my growth. But as soon as I had it in mind that, I could learn anything, and I can grow if I just put my mind to it, I started to see a lot of improvement. So yeah, just having a growth mindset and keeping an open mind is quite important when you move from a role to another. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel. I see Moyo has a question. Says, would like to know if the 2021 recruitment process would offer visa sponsorship. Would that be Stacey or?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to tell. The way UK immigration works at the moment, you kind of have to demonstrate what that candidate population and things looked like and why you're going with the candidate that you are, and that justification would, you know, determine whether we could sponsor or not. So I think for Spirit we can sponsor people, we have that option, and we'd look to use it. It's whether or not that would be accepted if we get a high volume of applications from UK or EEA nationals. Obviously that changes next year with Brexit and things. The immigration system's having quite a big overhaul, and we'll see the return of that post-study visa and things. So I'd say this year might be difficult. We would pursue it if it came up, but I think next year you'll have a lot more options.
Stacey, just to add, because I mentioned earlier was one of the challenges I had. One of the things that helped me was chemical engineering was on the shortage occupation list. So something I kept up to date with, and I should have mentioned earlier, is depending on your discipline, some roles fall in the shortage occupation list, which means companies don't then have to demonstrate the resident labor market test, which is what you're talking about there. So is this still applicable? And I guess for advice for the attendees, is you need to keep track of that if it is applicable.
It's applicable right now. Things change in January, and it goes to a points-based system where you can earn points for different things, and depending on, like, if you've got extra qualifications, you can put in some extra points where you might be lacking elsewhere. So it's fairly complicated, but it should make it easier. So I think if people are starting to think about sponsorship, definitely get onto the immigration page and see what that looks like, and start pricing up your points and seeing what you think you'd be able to do with them, because it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for everyone come next year. But yes, we can sponsor people if we meet all of the criteria. So it's the criteria that are key.
I definitely should have said this in my chat earlier, because I think I had a spreadsheet looking at number of points I had. So it's definitely something I would keep track of for sure.
Yeah, and the timing again is difficult because it changes in January. Any recruitment that we do next year will be captured by that, but at the moment we're stuck with the current system.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey. There was a question earlier on by Victor. I don't know if his question was answered on being feeling like an imposter. He's saying the oil and gas looks quite intimidating from the outside. I don't know if Victor is still, oops, I think he has left actually.
Sorry to just interrupt. I just wanted to comment and speak to Stacey in regards to the previous comment I made in the team we had regarding future internships, and to say that it would be great if Spirit Energy could incorporate having a virtual internship as well, because that would also make it a very huge platform to reach out to both students who are studying and professionals and graduates across board, because that would give it a good platform to bring up real life problems and projects within the business that could be simulated, and that would also help in bridging the knowledge gap across board. So I'd made that comment earlier on in the tea room, specifying that I feel it's a better alternative because of the fact that it's less in terms of cost, and I know most companies always look at the cost of manpower, the cost of logistics, and getting everything on the ground. But having such platform whereby such knowledge is being put out would be a very good alternative. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The difficulty we had this year was the kind of Spirit sent everyone home with COVID quite early. So we basically did an overnight. We were in the office and then we were at home. So we didn't feel like we were in the best place to have prepared a really valuable internship for someone. So what we didn't want to do was bring people in and them not have a good experience. But we are looking at it for next year. You're right. It does opens up to a lot more people and means we can bring in departments that we wouldn't normally as well. So yeah, if we can get it to happen, it's something we'll definitely want to do next summer.
I've got one last question, please, for Stella. Can everybody hear me? Have I fixed this?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
now.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Awesome. I fixed it. Awesome. Yeah. So I've got a bachelor's background in chemical engineering. I'm doing a master's in oil and gas engineering now. But the engineering sector right now is not looking too rosy. And like Mustafa stated earlier, it would be advisable to like spread my net and that kind of situation. So I would like to ask Stella, because I've got work experience in procurement and supply chain. So I would like to ask her that what exactly will I need to do to align myself in line with 2021 recruitment for supply chain management? Would the work experience alone suffice, or would there be some certifications or academic whatever that I might need to like branch out into that field?
Thank you, Moyo. The academic part is one side of the equation. The other side is if you had any experience in supply chain. But if you're starting off from a graduate level in supply chain, you wouldn't really need any supply chain experience. However, I would say if you can do CIPS, which is the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply, even if you're able to do the foundation level, that could give you a head start amongst every other graduate, for example, if everybody applying is a graduate. But secondly, I would say with your background in chemical engineering and then oil and gas engineering, you should be able to fit into either the well space, subsurface, or projects. Now, I didn't talk about O&M because you may need a little bit of knowledge of how the operations and maintenance things run. But I think with a degree in engineering, coming from an engineering background, you'll be able to fit in easily, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stella. So I think we should start rounding up now. Yeah, so again, many thanks to Spirit for making this happen. I've actually learned a lot now. And also above everything else, I feel I'm now friends with the guys in Spirit. So if I see you guys down the road, please feel free to say hi.
We'll pull you over.
Yes, you might push me, you know. Yeah, so it was quite a good session. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, AFB, for the opportunity as well.
Thanks, guys. That was excellent. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening. Stay safe.